I'm sort of surprised we've already done 6 of these, but they've all been fun and hope you'll enjoy today's. So the first thing is that Lawrence and I want to thank Larry Jones for inviting us to talk to his graduate school class at Montclair University. We had a lot of fun doing it. His class was really nice. We talked about technology issues, especially about how to use Zoom for a more professional look, because these are graduate students who, while employed, will probably be going off and getting other, other jobs, et cetera, and the importance of being professional. So we really enjoyed it, and Larry said he'll invite us back next year, and maybe they'll make it a required course for Lawrence and I to teach at Montclair. Well, maybe not. Okay. So the next item is about the t-shirt contest. When we first announced this t-shirt contest, the rule was the person who submitted the best idea would get a free t-shirt. Well, what happened was that we got 3 ideas that we thought were really good, and we didn't think, and we were going to run a segment on each one of these ideas, so we did not think it was fair to pick one of the 3. So the contest rules have been revised, and we'll probably revise them as we go along. But today's rules are, if we use your idea for a segment on Tech Time, then you get a t-shirt. That's the new rule. And we'll see how it plays out as we go along. So with that, Lawrence, who are the winners?
Oh, thank you, Carl. Yes. And I believe also we should add that all decisions about rule changes are final and non-appealable.
Right.
No, we really have a lot of fun with this. All right, so we have 3 winners for the month of May, and they are not in any particular order, but we have Jody Davis for an idea on telepromptering, which Carl's going to talk about. We have Felicia Farber, who submitted an idea about using multiple monitors or dual monitors, which we think is a good thing to talk about. I'm going to talk about that later. And Andrew Jasani, who also submitted an idea that Carl's going to talk about today on working with routers and modems and using your cell phone as a hotspot. So we actually got 3 very good ideas, and that's what led us to decide, you know what, why don't we just be more inclusive and open it up to anybody who submits an idea that we end up using. So those are the rules on a go forward basis. And what I'm going to do is show you the t-shirts. I mean, the good news, bad news. Good news is you want a t-shirt. The bad news is we don't have them yet. So we're waiting for them to be delivered. So you will just have to live with that excitement. What I'm going to do, though, is show you actually what the t-shirt looks like. And so this is the t-shirt. It's going to say Tech Time, if you can see that. And that's our new logo that we created. We think it'll be eye-catching, eye-popping, and all your friends and family will wonder what in the world is Tech Time about. So we're going to just grow the NJAPM Tech Time audience exponentially as a result of this t-shirt. And you will get those pretty soon. I think the delivery date is in about a week or 2. So once we get them, we'll send them out to the 3 winners. And that's the exciting announcement about t-shirts. And so with that, I will turn it back to Carl, and you can start us with the first segment of today's Tech Time.
Right. Let me mention 2 other things about the contest rules. A couple of people submitted the same idea, but later in time. So the winner goes the first person who sends in the idea, not the one who sends it in a week later or whatever. So I see Margie shaking her head because I think she submitted the same idea, but you weren't first, Margie. So sorry. This is the way the rule goes. So I don't remember what the second was, but I will give a shout out to Anju Jasani, who has her blurred background on. Really good. I like it, Anju. Unmute yourself and say something.
I unmuted myself. Yes, this is the new Zoom feature where you don't have to see my bed in the background when I'm in my when I'm broadcasting.
I happen to like that. So if you don't have blurred on an option, update to the latest Zoom software. And easiest way to do that is go online, Google Zoom update, because other directions that I found on Zoom just aren't accurate. They don't work. Okay. So with that, we're going to go to the first topic, which is how to deliver a virtual presentation. So sort of the holy grail of all of these presentations is for the presenter to be looking directly at the camera. So when I do that, of course, I miss everybody else. So let's look for a minute about what the problem is in sort of a technical way. Now I can't find my share screen. Okay, so here is the problem. Got to move this out a little bit. Okay, here are two diagrams. If you see the top one, this line here is your monitor, and above that you can see is my depiction of a webcam or camera. When you're sitting up close, what happens is this angle in here is large. And so it's very discernible that when you're looking at your screen, your monitor, you're not looking at your camera. So that is the issue that you have when you're sitting up fairly close. So what are a couple of ways to ameliorate that problem? One is you can sit a lot farther back and then zoom in with your camera. So even though you've zoomed in with your camera, if you're sitting back, there's practically no angle here. So even though you're looking down here, the camera thinks you're still looking at the camera. Okay. Now, if you don't want to sit so far back, you can raise the material that you want to read as close to the camera as possible. And that has the same effect because, again, it eliminates this angle and makes it virtually nothing, so that the person that you're watching, or the people who are watching you, still think that you're looking directly at the camera. So that's the problem. So what are some of the potential solutions, and should you use them? Well, these are potential solutions, but let's talk about teleprompters. So let's go to what a teleprompter looks like. Okay. So this is a real teleprompter. It's not the kind that you would see the president using or other people speaking, but it's the exact same principle. So down here is your laptop, iPad, or whatever. And this is a piece of glass. It's a two-way piece of glass. The light from this monitor, from your iPad, your tablet, is projected up to this piece of glass, so you can see it. The camera is behind this slanted piece of glass. And because it's a two-way piece of glass, the camera, when you're looking at what's on this side, the camera is seeing straight through and nothing that it's not seeing anything that you're seeing projected up there. So you can read or see whatever is on this, let's say it's an iPad tablet that's projected up here. You're looking directly at it, yet it's not really there. It's down here. Camera's going right through. And this is what everyone uses on news programs, other programs, where they're looking directly at the camera and you're wondering, how did they memorize all that stuff? Well, of course they don't. It's all here. So this is how you would do it professionally. Now, this kind of thing comes in a variety of formats. So this is a one for a tablet. This is one just for an or a smartphone. A little one for your smartphone. And it comes from, let me see if I can get out of here. It's $99 on Amazon. It would do the same kind of thing. Now it allows you to read whatever text you have there. Here's a different variety. Please, here, I'm a human. Okay, hold on. Doesn't, okay. And this one allows you to capture a portion. It doesn't want to let me do that. Okay, a portion of your computer screen. So if you can see, right, it's, I don't know why it's doing that, but it is. Again, it's capturing portion of your screen and doing that with just a portion. This might be interesting for, say, a therapist who is working with a single person, you know, only one, not a couple. It allows them to put the video of the person they're working with directly in front, and then they would be able to look that person directly in the eye all the time. Interesting, not cheap, about $400 and some. So these are all good if you want to deliver a speech that is essentially scripted. And the question then becomes, why do you want to do that? And the issue is probably you don't. You probably don't want to be delivering anything that's scripted to an audience. You might want to do it if you're creating a YouTube, some other video that is, say, for like Lawrence does. But think of it like this. If you were in a real venue, like we used to have all of our meetings, would go and would all sit around. If you had a speaker come in and you read the entire speech that he or she was giving, you would think that's bad form. You don't do that because there's no spontaneity to it. It's obvious, it's read. They could just send in the speech, and you know, why even bother having that? So the conventional wisdom is that if you're delivering something to a live audience, don't script it. Now, you may want to script a piece of it. You might want to script an introduction. I've done that at a number of times. I cover a number of points in the introduction. I want to make sure it goes well. You might want to do it if you have some other short segment and you want to have it come out looking very professional. So that's one reason you might do it. You might also want to put up bullet points. The problem is when you're doing that, you're not seeing other things. You're not seeing people. You're not seeing other things that go along. So teleprompters can be good if you're using it in a certain way for developing a video, doing YouTube things, what a variety of other things. I don't think very useful if in the kind of work that we're doing, with that exception of the one teleprompter that just took a portion of the screen, and then you could position into that portion one person. So what is another way to solve this other than sitting back and far away? So let me give you a virtual teleprompter. And let me have a new share. Okay, so this is a homemade teleprompter. It's nothing more than Word. And I got to move some things around on my screen. Okay, it's nothing more than Word. So I wrote, this is how to create a homemade teleprompter and will work well for most occasions. First, I type my text. Then I adjust the margins so that it's only a few words wide. I do that so there's no eye movement from side to side. Now, you may have seen people reading text doing something like this, but because the text is so wide, it's visible that they're seeing going left to right. Okay. Then scroll with your mouse. It takes practice to not move your eyes to the left or right, and from the text to the webcam. Now you could probably see my eyes move. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to highlight that. Now I'm going to move the margin way over there and move this margin way over here. Okay, I have now created something that I can read, and it's narrow enough, the margins are wide enough, I guess, so that the only thing I see are a few words. Now, many of you might not know that your mouse has a function that if you press the center roller, just press it, this little thing comes up. It has it on Logitech, it has on Microsoft. And you can then make that text move up or down at a different speed. So if I move it like this, it says, this is how to create a homemade teleprompter and will work well enough for most occasions. First, I type my text, then I adjust the margins so that it's only a few words wide. I do that so there is no eye movement from side to side. And then scroll with your mouse. It takes practice to not move your eyes to the left or right and from the text to the webcam. But with practice, it works. Now, I hope it didn't look like I was more or less talking directly into the camera and I was not moving my eyes. And now it takes some practice to do this. One of the things I find I would do is I'd read the text and I'd look up at the camera. Well, that gives it away. Or I'm not controlling the way it scrolls well enough. But those are all learnable things. This works, I think, pretty well for a virtual teleprompter. Okay, so with that, let's go to some questions. Okay. Okay. Jody instructions. I'm not seeing a question. Okay. Are there any questions at this point? Anything about teleprompters, about how to do this? Okay. Let me also mention one thing that came up when we were presenting with Larry Jones. One of the problems is if you are in a meeting like this, or let's say it's with clients, you obviously want to look at your clients. You can't look at the camera all the time. You have to look at your clients, so you want to see what they're doing. That said, your clients might perceive that you're not looking at them at all. So it might be advisable to explain what's going on to your clients. You know, that I'm looking at your thumbnail videos. It might not look like I am looking at you, but let me assure you I am, you know, just so that they know what's going on. Okay, so that is on using teleprompters. Okay, price and best value. This is from Jody to me. Price and best value if you can provide a list. I gather we have to have a camera. It went away too quickly. So they run all over the price range. $100, $500, something in that range. You can use a webcam. You don't have to have a regular camera. If you have a good, relatively recent SLR camera, they can all be used as webcams and the quality is outstanding, outstanding. If you're interested in getting something that's really going to work beautifully, you know, an SLR camera and something like that would be just phenomenal. Okay. Any other, wait, one more chat. No, I can't think of anything else. Gabrielle, you can prompt smart for your phone for free. Yes, you can do this free one. Frankly, I tried it, and as opposed to the way I did that, that little text that I was scrolling, I found my way was just as easy, if not better. So, okay.
You know, Carl, I'll just make a comment to your first point, or one of your first points, which I think probably everybody's aware of. It really is going to depend on what you're using it for. I tried to do telepromptering a long time ago, just using Microsoft Word, like splitting my screen and, you know, having it typed up in really large font so I could read it. I was trying to make a video, and the reality is that all the time and energy that I spent in retaking it because I didn't like the way it sounded, or I didn't like the way the delivery was, actually was better spent just memorizing and really knowing what I wanted to say, and then just speaking into the camera without the actual words that I thought I needed. So it really does depend on what you're using it for. Carl's already said that, you know, if you're making a presentation, definitely I would not recommend doing that. And think about it. Is anybody here an elected official that is making public presentations all the time and have speech writers that needs a teleprompter? I doubt it, right? I think, when would you use it? You might have a couple occasions to use it. You don't have time to really rehearse maybe, but I think by and large, and I'm not taking away from the coolness factor of having a teleprompter, but I'm going to just kind of re-emphasize maybe that there's no substitute for preparation. And when you do take the extra time to prepare in what you're going to say, because you know it cold, you can look in the camera and just keep talking and come across way more natural. I know maybe I'm very finicky, but I know when somebody's not prepared and when they're reading and when somebody is. I think anybody can really feel that vibe. And you come across, my view is, way more credible. Whatever you're talking about, you just have a lot more credibility when you do not have to rely on reading something. So again, I'm not downplaying any of the technology. And if it is something that you feel more comfortable with, by all means, what Carl's gone through is really cool stuff. And I love even the basic Microsoft Word concept. You can save a lot of money and you can usually get the job done using that. So I love that idea. I'm not downplaying it, but I am just emphasizing that I think credibility wise, you just come across so much more credible when you know it.
Absolutely. Margie.
Yeah, question. So when you use the homemade version, do you decrease the size of your Zoom picture, let's say, your Zoom screen, and put it above that, or do you put it on the side?
I just put it, I was just centered under my camera as high as I could get.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I narrowed it down and put it directly as close under that camera as I could get. And I'm reading the text from the top line. Okay, so that's the trick of scrolling it. So you're reading from the top line or as close as you can so that it looks like you're looking at the camera. Because at
Right,
that
but
point,
you have to minimize your Zoom screen.
no,
No?
no.
No, what you can do, Margie,
Yeah,
I think I
I'll
know
wait
exactly
for-
what you're asking, Margie. It depends on your, what's going to make it more comfortable for you is really probably a direct relationship to how big your screen is. So if you're using a desktop monitor, for instance, I have a 24-inch desktop monitor, so it's a pretty big screen. But if you're using a laptop, that's maybe a 15-inch screen, it's going to be a little bit closer, right? But what I do many times is I will expand the Zoom screen wide and make it, let's say, half the height of my monitor. So in fact, that's how it is right this second as I'm looking at everybody. I have a background Word document up that only half, I also have resized the Microsoft Word so that it's only half the height. It's the full width of the monitor, but that's lying right on top of the Zoom, which is also the full width, but only half the height. That's split screening it. And so when I'm looking, if I need to glance down at the Word document for some notes, maybe I'm not glancing too far down because it's right below the eye level of the webcam. Whereas if I'm looking at everybody on the screen, and I'll overemphasize it, I'm looking down now, and that's where everybody is lower. So you can see my head's lower when I'm looking at people, but it's more eye level when I'm looking at the camera and the Word document. So I think that's kind of what your question is, like, what do you do with the Zoom presentation if you're trying to use a document like Word or something else running on the same screen? And it's really a great segue into the next topic, because we're going to talk about dual monitors. Unless, Carl, if you're wrapped up with yours, I'll take it right from here and go right into dual monitors.
Okay.
Okay. So why have a dual monitor, right? I mean, this is one of the reasons why working with the dual monitor is kind of cool, because you don't have to, deal with a lot of this resizing of windows and things to get it all nice for yourself when you're doing things like talking on Zoom or just even working for yourself. Sometimes you want to just resize things so you can split your screen. And the biggest reason is, it does increase your screen real estate. That's one of the reasons why I got a dual monitor. And I only did it maybe a year or two ago. A friend of mine had suggested it, and he said, once you'll do it, you'll never go back. And it's really true. It does immediately really cool, like double your width, double your screen space if you think about it. And because we do a lot of multitasking, right? All of us do a lot of multitasking. It really becomes a little bit more efficient in doing that, rather than, constantly like opening or minimizing and maximizing and resizing windows. You can now have something on a completely separate screen. And a lot of this also is going to depend on your physical workspace, right? Because they do make dual monitor supports, if you're not familiar with that. And I was going to show a screen of that in a minute. So you can have like the exact same size monitor right next to the other one. You can mount it on the wall. You can mount it on your desk, depending on your physical, size of your desk and all that. So that's one way to do it. And then another way, the way I did it was really out of necessity, the way my home office is set up, because that's where I have this and that's where I'm coming from. Because of just the configuration, my second monitor is actually up and to the left. So they're not right next to each other on the same eye level, which is a little annoying for me sometimes, quite frankly, but I can't get it. You know, I would be covering up the phone and other things. So I actually just made a stand for myself that was higher. I like to do things like that, but you could easily buy a stand. But I just made a stand and propped up this second monitor, which was really an old computer that I had in the closet. I realized I had a 22-inch screen, and I was like, hey, that's actually a pretty decent sized screen. So now I have a desktop with the 24-inch and a second monitor with a 22-inch screen. So, but it's a little bit up and to the left. So that limits me a little bit in terms of, you know, if I was going to be looking at that screen, now I've got a profile look, you know, that type of thing. But it doesn't limit me for other purposes, which I'll get into. So the first thing, obviously, is just it immediately increases your real estate. Now, the other thing, just thinking about it from multitasking in terms of mediation, you could easily have a Zoom virtual mediation going on one screen, and then on your dual screen, your second monitor, you could have the memorandum of understanding, right on the other screen, or your memorandum agreement, whatever your mediation agreement, whatever you're working on, maybe literally right on the other screen, out of the way. So you have one screen where you're just talking to people, and the other screen where you have your document, and you could literally be typing things in while you're having a conversation, or you could have notes or whatever you wanted on this second screen out of the way, out of the Zoom, you know, field. So that's just like from an organizational standpoint, that's a nice feature to have. And the other reasons why, you know, dual monitors come into play for a lot of other businesses is not so much for mediation purposes, but for people that are dealing like customer service and web designers. They all love these dual monitors because it lets them do multiple things at one time. But even just as an attorney needing, for instance, I'll tell you another thing that I do. A lot of times I have, you know, my browser open on this separate screen, and I'm researching stuff while I'm talking to the client, looking at his file and documents on the other screen. And he's asking me, or she's asking me questions that I might not be 100% sure of an answer. And I've got my second screen going, and I'm just, you know, researching. Now, can you do this all on the same screen? Yes, I could do it. I could, you know, I could easily adjust things, as I said, and resize the screens, but it's just easier and simpler to keep things separate sometimes, and in a size that's actually big. That's the other part about it. When you have that second monitor, you know, now things are larger because they don't have to be squished into your you know, single screen. And so it's just easier to just concentrate and just not lose your train of thought when you have that. Another reason why dual monitors are really cool is for cutting and pasting purposes. If you're somebody that creates newsletters or does a lot of PowerPoint presentations, when you have a dual monitor, it does eliminate, you know, alternating between tabs and scrolling up and down. A lot of times, if you're cutting and pasting from a large document, if you had that document in two screens, you can cut and paste from one to the other. You don't kind of screw yourself up. You don't have to scroll all the way down, scroll all the way up. Little things like that, you know, not the end of the world. You could do it on one screen, but just a nicer, easier way of doing things. You don't make as many mistakes. It's quicker, things like that. Another reason why a dual screen could be really nice for you is you can have, let's say, a PowerPoint presentation. And this is going to a little bit like the telepromptering. What was going through my mind is when I give a speech sometimes, like especially with the virtual presentation, like tomorrow I have another presentation I'm going to give. I'm going to have the Zoom field in front of me, but I'm going to have the PowerPoint that they're not going to see. I'm not giving a PowerPoint presentation. I'm just talking. But I do have a PowerPoint presentation for it, but I don't want to share my screen on a Zoom presentation using it. I feel you lose it a little bit. It's boring looking at somebody's screen. I'd rather talk into the camera, but my PowerPoint is going, and I have either the cursor on the, the enter key on my keyboard, or I have a little remote thing that can advance the PowerPoint. You can have a PowerPoint presentation going for yourself on what you want to say to people without them seeing it, because you're not screen sharing. And you can do that on the second monitor, and it's big and it's easy for you to see or glance at, and it doesn't look that noticeable because it's bigger, because each screen is big and only has maybe a couple of bullet points. So that's another workaround. Instead of using a teleprompter, a dual monitor situation with a PowerPoint running on one of the screens, really nice. Another advantage of using a dual monitor, and I'm just kind of going through some basic things that you might have thought about already, or just maybe this appeals to you, is some people do a lot of product comparisons when they're shopping, right? Now, a lot of times you're shopping for one manufacturer, and they have multiple different flavors of whatever product or service that you're thinking about. And they have a comparison chart that you bring up, right, that they've already created for you, and you can see that. But what about when it's 2 different manufacturers, or 3 different manufacturers, or 3 different software service providers that you're thinking about? You can do a lot of nice comparison, bringing up on a second screen in very big, easy to see, very organized way right there too. So some people really get off on it just from product comparisons when they're shopping. If you're doing any kind of video editing or image editing like Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator or video editing software, and that may not be your thing, but that is another reason why a dual monitor is nice, because you can keep the editing commands on one screen and just the image or the video on the second screen. And it's just very easy to just not make mistakes, keep all your editing stuff on one screen, and just the actual the actual image or video, as I said, on the other screen. And some miscellaneous reasons why, what I've found, not that I did it for this purpose, but I'll tell you some of the things that I use it for that I kind of like. When there's a real major golf tournament on, like the Masters or the PGA that's coming up in a week or two, I keep it on the second monitor. So I have a live stream of that. It's big and I'm working, but I've got something in the background. You might like that for, having your video. Maybe you have a live feed for security purposes at your house or whatever. You can keep that, or your pets or your kids, right? You can keep a whole video stream going on the second monitor. I've got a stray cat that I've mentioned before on this thing. When that cat shows up on the video, there it is, right? And oh, the cat wants some food. I'll go down and feed the cat, let's say. Also, keep an eye on your neighbors, right? Are they stealing your vegetables from your garden, right? Keep an eye on that. Or music playlists and things like that. So those are just some other miscellaneous benefits that you get when you're not using it, let's say, for work purposes. So that's enough about the reasons. Let's talk a little bit about, actually doing it. So the first thing is, connections. This is all really simple stuff now, because most of your, your desktops, right, have a lot of multiple ports in the back or in the front now, right? So there's usually like a couple of HDMI ports these days if you've bought something more recent. So there's usually these ports that you could just plug in this second monitor to. And Windows, now I'm a Windows person, I'm not a Mac person, but so bear with me on anything I say is really geared towards Windows, but I am very confident to believe that everything I'm saying is certainly possible with the Mac, obviously. I just don't know the exact things. But with Windows, you plug this in, Windows 10, if you're upgraded to Windows 10, which I assume most people are by now, it's going to automatically find that second monitor for you. So you don't have to do anything fancy. It's just plugging it in. Which particular port, if you have an HDMI port, that's obviously, preferable, but you've got other types of ports that will allow for it, whether it's a mini DVI or a USB-C, all these different types of ports. And I don't want to, that's beyond, it'll get into the weeds if we start going into all the different type of ports. But most monitors these days are going to come HDMI, and your desktop or your laptop has these built-in ports to receive these monitors. And if you have an older desktop or an older laptop, there's so many items out there on the internet, very easily found, that can convert what port you have, to what you need to have. There's so many male, female type of extensions out there that you're not going to have to throw away your desktop on your laptop typically. So don't get mired down into wondering what you know, is this doable? Most of the time it's doable, and it just might need a few little, little due diligence on making sure you have the right connections. So that's the first thing I would say. There's actually another thing. And while I was doing a little homework for this particular segment, I came across something. There's actually a monitor that is available and is designed specifically to be a secondary laptop monitor. So it actually slides out from the back of, I guess, when you open your laptop, like the cover has a built-in second monitor, which I thought was pretty snazzy. I've never looked at this. The name of it is DUX Pro. That's DUEX Pro. I'm not endorsing it or anything like that. I've never looked into it. I just happened to see that. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. It slides out when you want to use it, and it slides in when you don't need it. And just for traveling purposes, that might be a cool thing to be able to go with your laptop wherever you're going. So just throw that out there for you. But in terms of once you have it connected, then I'm gonna screen share now and just show something real quickly. Let's do this. Okay. So if I'm screen sharing, and if you're in Windows, if you can see this, once you go to Windows, let's say, again, this is just Windows, you're going to your settings, you're going to System. After you go to System, you're just going up to Display, and then it's going to show you, your options in the display. And it's going to come up and show you two monitors once you've installed that second monitor, which is basically plugging it in, right? And then Windows is going to find it, and it's going to give you a 1 and 2, and it's going to show you. Then it'll let you detect it if it didn't find it, you can hit detect. But let's assume you're set up, it's found. Then all you do is when you're scrolling down, it'll come. There's an option here, multiple displays. And if you click on this, you have the option to show it only on number 1, whichever one you've designated as the number 1 display, or show it only on 2, or extend these displays, which is what I have. And there's also another option, which doesn't appear on my system. And there's some type of a glitch out there in the world, and I do not know why, but there's also an option called duplicate. And if it does show up for you for duplicate, and I do not know why, but after installing Windows 10, I don't even have that option. And I've seen many other people on the internet with the same problem. So I can't speak to that, but I can tell you may have in your computer the option to duplicate, which will allow you to duplicate the same screen on both monitors, okay? I have it set up for extend, which I actually like better, because what it does is it allows you just to, it's basically extending your display as one big gigantic computer screen. So when I move the cursor from, let me just get back onto Zoom here for a second. Okay. I'm trying to get my screen here. Okay, so let's say if I'm just moving my cursor from, my initial screen that's right in front of me, and now I just move the cursor off the edge. If I go to the left side, the cursor goes right to the other screen. So now in extended play, I'm literally just moving my cursor back and forth between the left and the right, and it's one gigantic screen. And then all I'm doing is dragging, let's say, whatever window I want on the second screen, because it's as if I have one big screen. And if I want to put Microsoft Word, all right, I want to put that on the second screen, I just drag that application right to the second screen. And now Microsoft Word's on the left-hand side, or PowerPoint's on the left-hand side, or one of my browser windows. I could have the internet open, and I could have multiple browser windows going right on one screen, my main screen. And now I want to just save, let's say, the Amazon page I'm shopping on. I don't want that to close off. I just want to set that out separately. And I drag Amazon to the left-hand side. And now that's on my second screen. So extended view just allows you to just have one gigantic screen in front of you, and your cursor is just going from back and forth depending on how you're moving it. And it works fine. It's seamless. It's real simple to do. I want to share with you, if I can right now, monitors, okay? Because this is what I was talking about earlier. So here's Amazon. I clicked on Amazon. I just went to monitors. So, which monitor would you want to get, right? There's a gazillion different monitors. Do you need a gaming monitor for your second screen? No, you probably don't. If this is a work-related thing, you need a basic work monitor. To me, the size is more important as long as it has the basic functionality. And on Amazon, just to give you an idea, usually you can get from anywhere from less than $100 to, you can spend $400 if you wanted to, but you don't need to. I mean, there's a bunch of them on Amazon, and I'm not going to go into all the different particular types because that's for you to do, your research on. I can't sit here and tell you which particular monitor is better for you, but what are the factors? A 20-inch monitor versus a 22 or 24. If you've got the room in your office configuration, to me, I like to go the larger the better, just for eyesight and eye strain. So the largest you could go would be my first thought. And then in terms of how big of a footprint does the stand take up, if you got to use a stand as opposed to putting it on the wall, or if you're not going to use one of the monitor mounts that I was talking about. So you want to look at size, you want to look at the footprint of the stand, and then, doing your research like any other any other product on Amazon. You can see there's a couple here, 82, 95, 129. I've a few friends that have bought monitors. You can do fine with something around $100 as a second monitor. You really can. So you don't need to be spending, $400 on a second monitor. This is something that's relatively inexpensive to give you this newfound freedom or liberty that you have in terms of just how you're doing multitasking. So there's plenty of them. And also, I think I had a link here for the dual mounts, just to show. I wanted to show you what the dual mounts look like. So you can see right here, this is like what a dual mount looks like. And you can either put these pieces into the wall, or you can have it, if you can get it onto your actual desk, there's plenty of ways to attach these to the desk as well. So they're kind of nifty, right? And look, they're not that expensive either. You can get these for, some 55, 79, 99. You're going to have to do a little homework and figure out which one is in your budget and cost effective. Here's a bestseller. There's a lot of these things you can do. You can find this stuff relatively inexpensive. I would think a dual monitor, a decent one, probably somewhere between $50 and $75 is my own take on this. You don't want to go super cheap on something like that. That would be my advice, because, it is holding up two of your monitors. You don't want to have, if you're going to spend a little bit more and you're going to do a dual monitor support, I think it's prudent to put in a little extra to get a sturdier one. That's the last thing you want to be thinking about when you have dual monitors, is anything like that's going to go wrong in terms of supporting it and keeping it up there for years. So don't save $20 for something that is going to potentially, God forbid, something happens and your monitor breaks and it drops one of your monitors. You're really just being, I think, foolish there and saving $20. So I'd spend a little bit more to make sure you have a decent mounting stand, and I'd spend a little bit. You don't want the super cheapest monitor out on the market either, because you want to make sure that you have something that's decent, that's going to serve your purposes. You don't need a gaming monitor, more than likely. So you just need something that's decent, that's going to be good for work purposes. And there's plenty of them to choose from in that 75 to 150 category. That would be the range that I would expect that if I was going to buy a new monitor today for dual purposes, I would be looking probably between $75 and $150 maximum for my second monitor. And I wouldn't want to go more than $50 to $75 on my dual mounting if I had the capability of doing that in my particular office situation, which I didn't. So that's kind of what I wanted to say on dual monitors. The key is just one other thing is that duplicate screen. Again, there is some type of glitch where it doesn't show up sometimes after you install it, but usually you get the extend, which accomplishes the same thing for the most part, because I don't know that you need the exact same screen duplicated next to each other. You can sort of just pull out what you need to go on the second screen, and you can do that with extend. So even if that doesn't come up for you, like it never came up for me, it's never stopped me from using it in the way that I need to. So with that, I'll turn it back to my partner.
Okay, we have a few questions
Okay.
that are in chat and some comments. We'll go to the questions at the end. Okay, the next thing is going to talk about the internet, modems, routers, and using your cell phone as a hotspot. So let me tell you a story. The story is September 5th, 2019. I am in Tanzania, in the Serengeti, in a tent, surrounded by animals at night. Elephants are walking by outside. There are other animals that will eat you. And so I'm there alone because my wife does not go on trips that take a long time to get to the location, where there are things like tsetse flies that can give you sleeping fever and whatever else. She does not go on these trips. So there I am in the middle of the night. And we happen to have perfect internet service. It's Wi-Fi. And I get an email from my wife who says she's been vacuuming all day and the internet doesn't work. So here in the middle of the night, I write back to her, say, not good news. Here are some things to try. Can you turn on the light by the couch in the family room? Well, that light switch or that light outlet happens to be on a set of switches, there are 3 of them, on an opposing wall. So if that light goes on, at least there's power. Are there lights on the router by the end of the couch? If no, check the cord. In any case, unplug it and plug it back in after 15 seconds. Are there lights on the modem behind the TV? If not, check plug. In any case, unplug it and wait to sign in again. If it doesn't work, read your Kindle until I get home. So that's what my quick diagnosis from the Serengeti to my wife. We all, and it was the light switch, we all have problems at times with the internet. And the first thing I want to say is, what should it be looking like? So let me bring up the full screen. And where are we? And I'm going to do a speed test. Now, every one of these meetings that I run, I use an Ethernet cable. So this is a speed test using an Ethernet cable. It's 112, whatever. But it's also important, look at this line up here. See how straight and steady that line is? There are no variations in that signal. It's a very good signal. Now it's doing the same thing with the upload, which is, of course, is very important for what we're doing because I'm uploading my video, whereas I'm downloading all the other ones. Okay, so that's what it looks like for that. Now, if I have 2 other bands, don't forget there are wireless bands and there are 2 of them. So you really need to check. And what I'm doing now is I'm wirelessly connecting my cell phone. Okay, this is now my cell phone. I've wirelessly connected my cell phone to my laptop. Okay, and I'm going to do a speed test here. This is the 5 gigahertz band. It's faster for some reason than one of Ethernet. Now, see this line, the purple line? That's the jitter line. And so what that's saying is how far off of normal is that signal going? And that's what can be concerning sometimes about Wi-Fi. And you could have bad Wi-Fi or not steady Wi-Fi, and it causes you to lose signal, et cetera. That is very fast, 272. The trouble is that 5 gigahertz band doesn't have great distance on it. So what most people use instead of, I got to get all this other stuff out of the way. Most people use instead of that is the, hold on. The other band, which is the 2 gigahertz band, 2.4 gigahertz. And let me go back to where I can get all these. I got to move all these screens. Okay. Okay, so let's get out of that. Let me go over here, back here, test again. Now I'm on the 2.4 gigahertz band. It's 85. That's a pretty good signal. That's about as good as you're going to get any, no matter what router you have. At any distance, that's about as good a signal that you're going to get out of a wireless router. So first, I would use an Ethernet cable if you possibly can, because it's going to give you the steadiest signal. You don't have to worry about Wi-Fi. Second, if you are relatively close to your router, use your the 5 gigahertz band, because it's much faster. But if you're at anywhere in the intermediate distance where it's reliable, not quite reliable, go to your 2.4 gigahertz band. So that may be some of the problems people are having, is they're not using the right band. So now let's talk about common problems that people have. Let me get out of here.
Cole, can you just repeat real quickly what the difference between the 5 megahertz and the 2 megahertz band, let's say, or whatever it's a reference to? Why would you, if you're further away, would you want to be on the 2 as opposed to the 5?
Because the range of the 5 gigahertz band is narrow. I mean, short. The higher the frequency, the shorter the distance you're going to be able to go with it, because it doesn't penetrate walls, et cetera, very well.
Okay.
So let me stop sharing this so I can get back to the thing. So you want to go with 5 if you're short, 2.4 if you're longer. The reason 2.4 has got a little problems is because a lot of other devices use the 2.4 gigahertz band. So a common problem that people have is that they have dead spots in their house or poor signal in their house. You have a couple things to try. First of all, go around your house with your smartphone and take speed tests from all the places where you need to do work. Write them down on a piece of paper, take the 5, take the 2, and see whether they are acceptable. If you have a spot that doesn't work, it's just dead, and you have an old router, you may consider a newer router because they do perform better. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is these new mesh routers. And they're getting pretty inexpensive They usually come in sets of 3, and you can get a set of 3 mesh routers for pretty reasonable. And what a mesh, you put, let me see if I can do this. Screen, okay, hold on. And where are we? Okay, let's go to mesh router. This is a mesh router. See, this one has 4 in it. And this is different than a range extender. A range extender is still around. They don't work that well. If this were your main router, and this were an extender, it'd be on a different band. It doesn't, speed slows down. It doesn't always transfer properly. What these are all operating on exactly the same band, and they work like this. They're literally meshed together. So it's really totally transparent. So every place that you are having a bad signal, you can add a mesh router close to it, someplace where it's going to pick up the good signal and then transfer it along. And that will cure all the dead spots that you have in your house. They work pretty well. And now they're getting pretty inexpensive. So the first thing I would try is a single new router and see if it improves it. Buy them at Costco because you can return them, or buy it at Amazon. Try one that's well rated and see if that improves it. If not, go to a mesh router, and they work well. Mesh routers tend to be a little slower than a single router. I mean, but still, they're going to give you performance that, you know, more than good enough. So that is a real possibility. So what happens if you just have slow internet? And it comes in a couple different varieties. One is, my internet was great and it's just slowed down. Nothing else has changed. Well, try unplugging your modem, try unplugging your router, plug it back in, see if that makes any difference. If it doesn't, you may be, you know, I'm not quite sure what it is. If it's slowing, it shouldn't. You got some problem here. You might need a new router, something of that sort. The more common situation we've been in COVID for so long, is there are more family members using the internet. So what are your solutions if there are more family members using the internet? And everyone's streaming video, they're doing a lot of different things. And so there are a couple of possibilities. Make sure that you have, move up in steps with your internet provider as to the speed. So if you have 300, go to 600. If 600 isn't hacking it, go up to a gigabyte. Don't overspend, because if you reach a certain point and you don't need it, you're just spending money. But step up and see how each increase in speed is helping you with what you have. A new option that's come along is called Wi-Fi 6. And Wi-Fi 6 operates in a sort of a different way. If you look at the older Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi 5, it's more like going down a single or dual lane highway. Wi-Fi 6 divides up the highway into lots of lanes, so people can be on dedicated lanes and not interfering with others. So you get a heck of a lot more throughput on a Wi-Fi 6 system. The problem with Wi-Fi 6 systems are that, first of all the devices you're using on Wi-Fi 6 have to be Wi-Fi 6. So if your things are more than a couple of years old, you're not going to have. So you might want to consider, if you're buying a new router, to buy one that is Wi-Fi 6, although some of them, especially in the mesh variety, are very, very expensive. I've seen some as high as $1,500. So that's something you would not want to do right away. I am not one of these bleeding edge technologists. I like to get something that's been around for a year or two, the price has come down, and all the bugs have been worked out of it, and I know whether it works well and what models work well. I'm not one to go out and just buy something just because it is the newest. So those should work pretty well, since those are the most common problems that people have. Also, you might need a new modem. Some of the modems that you might have might be old, especially if you own your own. But you can have your excuse me, internet provider check out your service. They can tell whether your devices are really up to the service they're providing. So let's move on to the next topic about using your cell phone as a hotspot. Can you do that? Let's say that this morning I turned on my computer and my internet was just not working. So I thought maybe it's my Wi-Fi. I put in my Ethernet cable, connected it down to the modem. It was still really just not working. So first rule of all problems is turn your device off and on. So I turned my computer off, turned it back on again, and it worked fine. No problem at all. If it had not worked and I had this program, what would I have done? Could I have used my cell phone as a hotspot? And you can, there's that option to use it as a hotspot. It's under, at least on an Android, just down on the screen that comes down. You pull it down, said turn it on, and then you connect it to your computer, your laptop, and it will work very well. Now, the only thing you have to be concerned about is it uses a lot of data. So you're going to be using somewhere between 600 megabytes to 1.5, 1.6 gigabytes per hour. And if you have an unlimited plan, that's not a problem. If you have a more limited plan, well, it could be a problem. You're going to have to pay for it. On the other hand, in an emergency, can it save your butt? And it certainly can. So it's always an option. I have a friend who uses his phone as a hotspot when he's traveling to keep his kids occupied on their iPads. Works very well. So those are some of the things. I don't know if you have other kinds of internet problems, but those are some of the basic kinds and what you can do about them. Okay. Let's see, there's some chats here.
I went through the chat score. Most of them are just public, comments for everybody to see.
Okay.
So I think they're self-explanatory. There was a question earlier about, can you use your TV monitor as a second monitor? And the answer would be yes, of course, depending on how old your monitor is, but more than likely, most TV monitors, and a lot of people have other older ones, smaller ones lying around, you can connect it and use it fine as a second monitor. You just have to, if it's really old, it may not work as good, but certainly an option. They usually have the connecting ports on them. Certainly the newer, your TV monitor basically is just a computer monitor that's just been really customized to be a great TV, but it's a computer.
Now, Debbie Mann did ask a question about how do you stop looking at your monitor and look at your camera? And it depends. Now, right now I'm looking at all the faces. Well, most people don't have their camera on, so I'm looking at their camera picture, which is not inappropriate. Why should I be looking, if I'm in the audience, why should I be looking at the camera? You should be looking at, maybe the other people see their reaction. When I look into the camera, I'm missing what other people are, looking like, etc. So, but when it's appropriate, it just is practice. You just have to keep practicing, and every time you think you should be looking at the camera, your eyes are away, just have to be aware of it and go back and do it. It's nothing more than pure practice. And
Actually called, Debbie's question, I was just looking at it in the chat room, and she gave for an example when giving a PowerPoint, and, you're hitting the nail right on the head, because when you do a PowerPoint presentation, what is usually, the weakest link? It's how much do I need to prepare, because you have this PowerPoint presentation that comes up and gives you what you need to say. And the truth is, the presenters that know their material cold really don't need the PowerPoint presentation. It might be there maybe to show the audience something, but in terms of you presenting the material on the PowerPoint, you don't really need to look at it. If you really know what you're talking about and you've practiced it and you've prepared as much as you need to, then you really don't need it. I mean, it's there just almost like as a reference point for an occasional glance. When I use PowerPoint, most of the time, I really just need to kind of glance at it to know, all right, I know I'm going to the next topic now. But then the topic that I'm talking about on the PowerPoint is right in here. And so I know it, so I can look into that camera. Hopefully 90% of the time, I'm looking right in that camera, and I can glance with my peripheral vision and see the PowerPoint. And maybe I will look down occasionally just to kind of know where I am. And, I'm not saying it's you don't need to not have to look at it. You don't have to be hiding it like it's a secret, but there is just no substitute for the preparation. The more you prepare and know it cold, the less you actually have to look at it when you're making a virtual presentation. And then there is no issue of looking at the camera, looking at my PowerPoint, looking at the camera. That goes away. That actually goes away. It's only there when you don't know what you want to say. Then it's there. Then that issue is there. And then it's just a matter of like how quickly can you do it? But once you know it, you really don't need to do that.
okay, so let's see what's left to do. What's left to do is to plug Lawrence's latest CLE program. Lawrence,
Wow.
tell us about your program.
Wow, Carl, what a pleasant surprise. I'm always ready to give a shameless plug.
Yeah.
I think everybody's seen my emails going around for the Birdies, Bogeys, and Burdens of Proof CLE course. You don't need to be an attorney to take the course and get value out of it. If you just put in the coupon code NJAPM, I think it's still a valid code, and it'll give you 100% off. Just take the course. I just came out with it recently. It's everything you need to know about if you're playing golf. And there's a lot of people that have been injured over the years on golf courses from errant golf shots. So I did sort of a historical look at the New Jersey cases and a couple outside the jurisdiction about burdens of proof, standard of care, what you need to do, what, do you have to yell for, and, is it reckless not to? It's kind of an interesting, fun class. It's only an hour long, but I'm really looking for people just to take it, to get some feedbacks and get some testimonials, hopefully as well. And thank you for the opportunity, Carl.
Wow, you're quite welcome, Lawrence. I'm waiting for my shirt too. So I have a question for everyone watching. We run these as meetings rather than in webinars. And yet today I noticed that 11 participants don't have their video on. So my question is, what is the benefit to you to have this in a meeting format rather than in a webinar format? Is there any? Here, someone want to say?
As the unabashed fan of meetings, I do see who's here, even if their camera is off versus at a webinar. I have no idea who's on as well. So
Why do you
it creates
care?
a community for me, whether or not I see their actual movement. The problem with the webinar is you have no idea who's on the webinar. You could be the only person watching, or there could be 200 other people. If the webinar showed you the other participants, I think I'd be happier.
Okay. Why don't more people have their videos on?
It's Monday. They haven't done their makeup. I'm wearing a sweatshirt, but
I know Michael doesn't do his makeup on Monday. I know that.
You're absolutely
Okay.
right. I'm being lazy right now, and I didn't turn on my my camera. For just because I joined late because I had another thing that ran into it, and I just didn't take the time to set up my camera.
Okay.
Which is
So for me, it was more just I was having lunch and I didn't
and
want
that
to.
too.
Well,
that
we,
too.
Yeah,
thank you, Jody. Right. One of the pet peeves, watching.
I
people
know,
lunch.
but I
Okay,
am back on.
great. Okay. Any comments, Lawrence, at the end?
No, I think we've covered enough. Probably people have saturated with
I can log
information.
on now. Hi, everybody.
Yay. Okay. So we will, go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut you
No,
off.
I was going to say, I think this is the last tech time for the summer. Our next one's going to start probably in September. Am I right there, Carl?
Yes.
Okay. The winners of the t-shirts, as we mentioned in the beginning, will get their t-shirts before September. So as soon as we get them in, we'll mail them out to you. And if anybody has any questions, as usual, obviously feel free to email Carl and myself, and we'll do our best to give you an answer. But we hope you found some value out of today's episode.
Right. And we haven't put out a end date for the next contest.
Hmm.
No. However, the next contest has started now. So any of you that have an idea, submit it now, sooner the better, because multiple ideas, the first one in gets it. So submit an idea so that you can get your official Tech Time t-shirt.
Yes, and Carl, we will have a caucus as to when the deadline is.
Okay.
We'll discuss that offline.
Okay, we'll discuss that offline. And of course, you could have Lawrence and I initial or sign your t-shirt if you wanted. But
Right.
we expect not many people are going to take that option.
When's our meet and greet, Carl? When are we doing that?
Yeah, you're right.
The grade schoolers, they all signed the back of the t-shirt so that we could all be, remember it for years to come.
That's it. It's a collector's item.
Right.
Okay. Well, have a great well, I'm around for two more webinars. We have one next week this is on the changes in college loan programs, et cetera. That's next week. And then the following week, which is the last one for the season, is Anshu's mock divorce mediation program. So that does it until the first week of September.
But remember, we have a conference or seminar on June 4th
Correct.
over Zoom. So please register. It's on a Friday, 9:30 to 4:30. Lots of good stuff, civil breakouts, divorce breakouts. This is about re-entry and relaunching. So as we transition back to real life, not this virtual life.
Right. Okay, well, thank you, everyone.
Yep. Thanks
All
for
right.
coming, and have a great summer. I'm sure we'll see each other online tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye, everybody.